And in many ways, that matters more, especially when we're in holy time. And so we begin together in just a moment. I want to make a suggestion. If you can hear me at all, which is fantastic, then I'd like to ask you to figure out a way to make it sound better. If you're listening on a tablet and you're by yourself, maybe try headphones. If you're at a TV and maybe you have a sound bar, if you even know what that is, then turn on the sound bar. Because what we can do tonight is, thanks to Neil and to Dave, our sound guy, is to bring you the sounds of the holiday and at least the spirit that we're infusing into it. There are so many things going on in the world tonight. I want you to take a break from it for at least the next 45 minutes. This is not a service to remember all the hard things. Please put your cares aside and let us enter into Shabbat and Rosh Hashanah together. We begin in the Machzor, which came in the bag that I hope that you got a chance to get. We're on page 4 as we begin with Psalm 92.
Tov lehodot l'Adonai, Tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, Tov lehodot l'Adonai, Tov lehodot l'Adonai, Tov lehodot l'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, Tov lehodot l'Adonai. Lagid b'boker chastecha, Lagid b'boker chastecha, Ve'emunatcha ba'leilot, Tov lehodot l'Adonai. Lagid b'boker chastecha, Lagid b'boker chastecha, Ve'emunatcha ba'leilot, Tov lehodot l'Adonai. Tzadik atama yifrach, Ke'eretz balvanon yizkesh tulim, Beveit Adonai, Bechatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu, Ol Yenuv the Seva, the Shenim Verananim Yiyu, the Hagid, Ki Yashar Adonai Tzuri, Velo Avatavo.
We continue on page 5 for the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMavorach.
Baruch Adonai Avorach le'olam vahed.
Baruch Adonai Avorach le'olam vahed.
We continue silently.
Uma v'yom v'layla, u'mavdil ben yom v'layla, no tzvot shemo, el chai v'kayam, tamidim lo chalen le'olam vahed, Baruch ata Adonai, hamari v'aravim.
Page 6. As we move our way toward the Shema, please lift up your voice where you are.
Baruch ata Adonai, ohev amo Yisroel, Shema Yisroel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, b'chol avavcha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol meodecha, ve'ayu hadvarim ha'ela, asher enochi mitzavecha, hayom al avavecha, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך, ושוכבך ובקמך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך וישעריך.
We continue silently on page 7.
Adonai Elohechem emet.
Second paragraph, page 8.
ומלכותו ברצון קיבלו עליהם משה ומרים ובני ישראל לכנו שירה בשמחה רבה ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באים אדוני מי כמוך נדר בקודש תורת תהילות אוסף אלה מלכותך ובניך בו קיים לפני משה זה לי הנביא אמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב גלו מעט חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני Yisrael.
As we turn to page 9 for the Hashkivenu, all through the last 6 and 7 months, the Hashkivenu has taken on special importance. It really is asking for a protection that God spreads over us, a protection that lets in love and lets in communication, lets in air, but also shields us from virus, from pathogen, from despair, from worry, from hunger and economic want, and that we may be guarded in our coming and going, which during pandemic has a special poignancy in its dangers. So as we wish a Sukkot Shalom to be over everybody at this time, I'm going to ask you to venture forth to read together with me from the space that you have created, the sacred space in your home. In English with me. Allow us, Adonai, our God, to sleep peacefully and to waken again tomorrow to life, our sovereign. Spread over us your canopy of peace. Restore us with your good counsel and save us for the sake of your name. Shield us, remove from us enemies and pestilence, sword, starvation, and sorrow, and remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you, God, watch over and deliver us, and you are the sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Ensure our going and our coming for life and peace now and forever. May you spread over us your canopy of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, who spreads the canopy of peace over us, over all the people Israel, over all the inhabitants of this world, and over Jerusalem. We continue with Vishamru.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש.
It's not too late. We are at the silent Amidah of Erev Rosh Hashanah, of Leil Rosh Hashanah. And you may feel, I didn't do the work of Elul. Maybe you did some work. I need to get in the spirit right now. And the liturgy gives you the space to do that. My recommendation to you is that you can do the liturgy as it is. You can explore the readings on either sides of the pages. And maybe there's a word, there's a phrase, there's an intention that comes your way. And that's the place to take the next step on this journey. You have the supplement from the bag of readings, poetry, if that's your way. Maybe your way is to close your eyes and settle into your own meditations. So find the way that is your way to use this silent time to really invite in the presence of Rosh Hashanah. And I always do this. If you've got nothing else, set your goal for what you want out of Rosh Hashanah this year. And use this time to think, what is my goal for Rosh Hashanah? And how am I going to get there? We continue on page 10, followed by the silent Amidah, which starts on page 11.
Yitkadal v'yitkadal Shemei Rabbah B'yamad yivrach yirotei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayedecho Beit Yisrael B'gala u'v'zman ha'kariv v'imro Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lamei ha'maya yidbarach yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbarit v'rabet aseh v'yidadar v'yidalev el Shmei Kudsha b'richu le'ela Mikal berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran b'yama, v'meru, amen.
If you need more time for your meditations, then you can mute us for a little bit, but not too long. And you can mute us for a little bit, but not too long, and continue what you're doing. As we continue now with some of the signature prayers of Rosh Hashanah, beginning on the bottom of page 16.
בספר חיים ברכה ושלום ופרנס טובה ניזכר וניכתב לפניך אנחנו וכל עמך בית ישראל לחיים טובים ולשלום. ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
Top of page 18.
ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם ויכל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה וישבות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות.
We continue the service with Kaddish Shalem, page 19.
יקדל ויקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
ויאמר דברי חירותי ומחמכותי וחייכון וביומכון וחיי לכל בית ישראל. בעגלה בזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך. לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך. וישתבח ויתפאר ויתמרמר ועשה. וידרב ולבלע שמי לקודשה בריחו לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה. דאמירן ביומה ואמרו אמן. תתקבל סוכרם ובנכו ישראל, קודם אבוהו נבישמה ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרבין שמי וחיים, עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו amen.
Page 24 for Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ham, v'romanu mikol lashon, v'kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu b'yahava, et yom hashabat hazeh v'et yom hazikaron hazeh, yom zichron Trua Rava Mikra Kodesh Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim Kivanu Vachata Ve'otanu Kidashtu Mikal Hamim Uvarcha Emet V'kayam La'ad Baruch Ata Adonai Melech Kol Haaretz Megadesh HaShabbat V'Yisrael V'Yom HaZikaron Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Shehechianu V'Kiyamanu V'higyanu lazman hazeh.
Amen. I just have to say I've been hearing all of your amens from home, and I'm very, very impressed. I'm going to be even more impressed when you stand up and do Aleinu with us on page 25.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon hakol, la'tek gidula liyotzeh breshit, shelo asanu kegei haratzot, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגהר עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגבהי מרוממים, הוא אלוהינו אינו. אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. כי המלכות שלך היא, ומלך נרוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, לא ימלוך עולם ועד ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 26. On this, Leil Rosh Hashanah and Leil Shabbat, we remember the yortzites of, among others, Georgiana Snyder-Beckold, Claire Bernstein, Philip Bresner, David Brotman, Esther Cook, Bernice Eskin, Israel Friedman, Michael Galant, Rebecca Hertzberg, Marvin Herzig, Doron Lam, Falik Lembersky, Morris Malamud, Stephen Markel, Helen Nettler, Tilly Panush, Max Pierre, Celia Perlman, Bertine Porosillans, Bonnie Koenig-Sackheim, Florence Schaefer, Anna Schwab, Frida Schiweck, Saul Slemrod, Ronnie Solomon, Leanna Weintal, Herbert Winston, and Hannah Zwerdling. As we continue to say Kaddish for Jay Lessing and Tay Cho, Evelyn Lieberman and Jolene Hermelin, Hannah Wayne, Ruth Ferguson, Gerhard Lowenberg, Arya Bookwalter, Hans Pedersen, Marilyn Niss and Joan Levitsky, Marjorie Dallas, Clarice Malach, Anita Strausberg, Vivian Lichter, Bruce Serwin, Ron Good, Ethel Kellen, Greg Schaefer, Jack Kuczynski, Maxine Feig, Ann Gare, Daniel Greenberg. And now, Yitta Ruchel Batziro Leah, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Mourner's Kaddish, please recite along with me on page 26. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Bi'alma divrach kirute v'yamlich malchute. V'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayedecho Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mivarach le'olam ulamei almaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei Kudesha brichu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran bi'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabbah min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru.
Amen.
Amen. May their memories continue to bring blessings to this world as we turn to Psalm 27 on page 27. I'm asking Neil to sing Achat Sha'alti, which you'll find in the bold a few lines down.
Achat shoalti me'et Adonai, ota avakesh. Achat shoalti me'et Adonai, ota avakesh. Shivti b'veit Adonai, kol yemei chayai, lachasot benoam Adonai, ulavaker b'cheichalo. Lachasot benoam Adonai, ulavaker b'cheichalo.
Yishar koach.
ולהם מנתי לראות בטוב אדוני בארץ חיים קווי אל אדוני חזק ומצווך וקווי אל אדוני.
Yishar koach.
ברוך תהיה.
With the Shana Tova Umetuka, I've chosen a few words to share with you guys today, and I want to thank you. From what I gather, what I'm feeling from the tendrils of the universe, is that we have a wonderfully full gathering. I feel like it's almost like there's shofars blowing all around our communities, little points of light firing in Ann Arbor, beyond into Washtenaw County. And I know many of you are joining us from all over the world. Maybe we're meant to feel that on this year, an ironic sense of togetherness because we're spread and connected with these points of light that we are. Entering Rosh Hashanah tonight overrides the need to do the Kabbalat Shabbat service, even though we're entering Shabbat as well. Our spiritual preparation makes redundant, we'd like to think anyway, the spiritual exercise that service and those psalms accomplish. So I ask, have we really done the spiritual work that exercise does? So to remind you, the psalms on Friday night take us on a little bit of a journey. We're a deer entering the forest, bearing no burden, and then we're supposed to begin by listening to the sounds coming all around us, the sounds coming from the sky, the sounds coming from the grass, from the trees, from the animals, from insects, from the water in the brooks, from the life that's in the ocean. And as we add in new sound on this journey of concentration, of tikkun hanefesh, we hear a harmony. As we feel invited to join in with it, we then feel invited to restore that harmony to our human relationships. In other words, enter the world without ego, get quiet, actively listen, and act accordingly. The journey completes when we arrive almost completes when we arrive at Har Kodesh, the holy mountain at Psalm 29, and then the voice of Adonai enters, not as a whisper, not as a still small voice, but 18 times, as a voice that thunders over the waters, shatters the cedars of Lebanon, strips the forest bare. And then it says that's the voice of our sovereign blessing us with peace. Why is it that God's voice doesn't answer as a small inner voice that we reach through silence, but rather in these loud, threatening, seemingly destructive sounds? And how is that a blessing of peace? Psalm 29, which we do when we parade the scroll as well, actually has that phrase, Kol Adonai, this kol, kol, kol of God, the sound of God, the voice of God 7 times. God speaking to us in voices, in kolot, echoing what it says at Mount Sinai, the Har Kodesh, with the thunder, the kolot that was coming from the sky, many voices. And Shabbat helps us to be there again. There's a lot of gematria that the mystics do with this, but they actually multiply those 18 times God's name appear by each of the letters, and they arrive at 72. By doing the process, not only are you enlivened 18, but you reach a state of chesed, of renewed love. And they even count up all the first letters of each of the Psalms, and they get to 430, which is gematria for nefesh, for soul, for spirit. The process is meant to reconnect our spirit to God. The process of filtering out the noise of the week, our own getting in our own way, so we can hear God voices, is the spiritual exercise of tikkun nefesh, a healing and fixing of our soul. When I was younger, I was entranced by movies that pictured wanderers and monks and holy people out on the edge of the Tibetan plateau, meditating to hear the still small voice within. I now think that, like in The Razor's Edge, that was my search to hear my own voice. Today, I experience God's voices as coming as many voices, just as at Mount Sinai, accompanied by shofar blasts that are yelling, I need to be heard. I'm not being heard. I need to be heard. Unmute me. I'm trying to tell you something. The voices of the streets of Portland, of Minneapolis, and of Detroit. but not only those, of the earth, of my loved ones, the people whom I claim to listen to the most, but probably have learned to tune out the most, or whose voices get lost in the noise I'm making. When someone isn't being heard, they get louder. Maybe that's why the sounds and the voice of God get so loud. Shabbat is trying to teach us how to listen. The shofar calls every day of every year. It's always blasting, not just on Rosh Hashanah. Some of these calls have been going on for some time, and they get louder. God is calling for us to take purposeful action. And this requires not getting rid of the noise outside of us, but getting rid of the noise inside of us. That's the purpose of Shabbat and the purpose of Torah, filtering out the non-essential voices and listening to the voice that's been repeating itself over and over, telling us what's essential. The 20th century biologist, it sounds so dated now, like it's such a long time ago, the 20th century. But you know I love him, the writer Lewis Thomas. He used to say that the defining feature of human beings was this communication that we make. We're sort of solitary creatures, but we need to work together. So we talk, and then they talk back to me. And we make these sounds over and over. And he asks, is it music or does it become noise? Is it a blessing or is it a curse, verbal communication? He says were an alien to visit us and not know our languages, they'd see us just making endless amounts of noise to each other. And isn't it amazing that he wrote that before the cell phone or the internet or social media? Today, if you're a parent, maybe not even a parent, during pandemic, you see the most popular game on the Nintendo is a game called Animal Crossing. And the entire sort of charming game is that you walk around in villages and these little creatures come up to you and go bzz, 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 bzz. And then you press a button so you say bzz, 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 back to them. It sounds a lot like the noise we make all of the time. It only goes on for an hour or two or a couple of 100 hours. Noise can prevent us from hearing what is essential. And that's what the Psalms are trying to tell us. Now, I know that the pandemic has brought with it tremendous loss and destruction, disconnection and confusion, insecurity and anxiety. But it has also brought gifts with it as well. It has made it literally impossible to continue doing things as we've done them before. It has forced us to stop. That's the meaning of Shabbat, to cease. As a myriad of decisions face us, not just occasionally, but often on an almost daily basis, serious decisions about whether and how we work, how we educate our children, how we care for our parents and our grandparents and our children and our grandchildren, how we balance risk with necessity, with choice. Each of our choices is revealed in its kavod, its weightiness. I know I'm incredibly privileged. I know I'm lucky to have a job. Do I give it up? Some people ask the question. They have to face a question like, do I give up my job because I have children at home who need me? Or I care for someone who's at risk? If I'm not lucky enough to work from home, do I turn away a child that needs me for fear of interrupting the Zoom meeting and looking unprofessional? Will I risk losing my job or not advancing? We face choices, so many of us. Do I choose between utter social isolation and physical isolation? Or do I take the risks of taking a walk with a friend or going grocery shopping? At first, when so many of these decisions were upon us, I wonder if you were like me. And much of what I did was a combination of three things. Trying to simulate as much as I could from before, just squeezing it in the new rules. Or talking a lot about the new situation and making a lot of bzz, 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 bzz. How about you? Bzz, 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 bzz. Or was that avoid listening to the decisions I needed to make and putting them off? As those strategies came to an end, I found myself claiming space. Or should I say that the pandemic was claiming the space for me? A space to get comfortable with the discomfort. and against all logic to find that that discomfort or the comfort with that discomfort, rather than what I feel my normal life is, which is I do a lot of biz about my discomfort with what really is comfort, started to still this noise. With the help of my amazing spouse, we adopted one deceptively simple exercise to face the decisions that we had to make. And here it is. It's the question we apply over and over again to break through the noise and to get at what is essential. What is the most important thing I should be doing with my time and resources right now? What's the most essential, important thing for me to be doing with my time and resources right now? Which friends do I establish contact with? Which emails do I answer? Do I talk to my child? Do I go drop off food at someone's home? Do I repair my relationship with someone at risk? Do I prepare for my work meeting? Do I find a way to give back to the community? All are so important. So Nadav, take a breath. Be comfortable with the discomfort of knowing that it's all important. And ask yourself, what's the most important thing to do with my time and resources right now? Let the noise inside dissipate and let the hearing begin. Where is the shofar blast calling me to? Which mountain? And then you'll know the right answer to that question, or at least you'll have an answer that in the future you'll have peace, that at least you came to that decision with that clarity. We rely a lot, Lynn and I, on the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. He points out, as I did in a sermon this past year, and many of you I bet do to your friends, that the English word priority, up until modern times, could only refer to a single item. There was no such thing as the plural. You couldn't have priorities. Only one thing could be the most important thing. You can't have most important thing number 2, most important thing number 3. You couldn't say that's the most important thing to do first and that's the priority to do second, because that's the noise. You also can't have more than one alternative. We have gotten so busy in our lives, we're trying to do so much at the same time in normal times. We're putting so much pressure on ourselves to be everything for everybody, to work night and day, to answer every email, to take care of every grandchild. And when we find ourselves falling short, there's no shortage of people on social media or in our social circle or at work to tell us that we just need to learn how to prioritize better, be more efficient. But the pandemic has put the lie to it. It's made it impossible to live that way. You will crush yourself trying to do it all. For months, I was running out of steam by 5 p.m., sometimes by 4:30, sometimes earlier. That's basically a half day for me. I was so touched when I was speaking with one of our members here, who has dozens of people she supervises, all now working from home, and I asked her, what do you say to them? How do you handle it? She says, I say one thing, and I repeat it over and over. Forgive yourself for not being like you were before. If you are even at 50%, that's the maximum level of productivity you should be seeking. And if you need to attend to what has priority, that is what I want you to do. Go take care of what you need to take care of and realize the tremendous limitation on your time and your energy. I can only imagine what decisions you're facing in your life. I feel terrible that mine even seem hard for me when I'm so privileged. People strain to donate to the synagogue so that I can have an income to do what I love to do and do the mission I believe in, and I get to have a house and a family. And I'm afraid you'll find the decisions I'm about to share with you privileged and bourgeois. Please give me the benefit that I know they are. Do I move my immunocompromised 94-year-old father-in-law in with us, as was the plan, so that he's not alone and we can care for him and he can see his grandchildren? Or do I continue to have him completely isolated in his apartment for another year, with only an occasional phone call and groceries at his door? And it doesn't really help when you're deaf. With whom do I stretch to maintain ongoing relationships by Zoom? Do I send my children back to in-person school, or to Zoom school, or to homeschool? Will I be damaging them with the wrong decision? What are the experts saying? What's everybody else doing? And then I realized I'm back to the noise and the avoidance. Articles and articles, noise and noise. Just sit with the question. What is the most important thing I need to do with my time and resources right now? We spend our lives trying to do it all. Someone says your child will benefit from this activity, so it seems selfish to damage them by depriving them of it, something that might give them more friends or make them more fit or meet their passion. We give away our time and our resources constantly, our energy divided to many activities. And the result is that we have the unfulfilling experience of making a millimeter of progress in a million directions, as the author of the book says. When we attempt to invest in everything at once, it's an act also of not choosing. Part of the reason we don't choose is because it can feel like a loss, and because we haven't learned to say no. People are expecting yeses. Lots and lots of action can be a way of not doing the most important action, which is choosing. So the pandemic has forced us to stop. It has prevented us from saying yes to all the invitations. We can try to spend it trying to recreate what life was like before, the plethora of options we were living, through somehow making them safe in a time of COVID, or we can accept this gigantic Shabbat, this gigantic tikkun hanefesh, this healing of the soul that has forced us to stop. The pandemic reminds us that life is not about how to get more things done. It's about how to get the right things done, personally and as a community. You cannot hear the voice of Torah or of God if you are constantly engaged in the noise of the non-essential. The shofar blasts are calls to focus on purposeful action that will create a meaningful life. I want to share, I hope you don't think this is too nepotistic. So Ziva, I don't know if you can see this, Ziva wrote this at home one day, sitting at the table. I asked her for permission to read it. And what it says is, it's an essay called COVID-19. And I know I'm lucky to have this, but please, this is Friday night. It's the sweetness of Yom Tov. To most people, COVID is it's very, very, very bad. But some things about COVID are good. These are some good things. I get to spend 100 times more time with my dad. Usually, I basically don't get to see my dad at all. But now he is home 100% more. So thank you. But, and she tells me I'm supposed to sing this part, we need a vaccine for COVID-19. We need a vaccine for COVID-19. Is it just coincidence that Rosh Hashanah coincides with Shabbat this year? Or is this the year of the Shabbat rest? Maybe that's why we didn't need the Psalms tonight. We are doing that spiritual work already. Thank God for Rosh Hashanah. Thank God for a fresh start to this year, a chance to change our relationship to this beautiful world and each of its inhabitants. Happy birthday, world. Let our hearkening to what you are trying to say, to your shofar blasts, be our gift to you. We continue with Yigdal on page 28.
Yigdal Elohim Chai, ve'yishtabach, נמצא ואין עת אל מציאותו, אחד ואין יחיד כייחודו, נעלם וגם אין סוף לאחדותו, אין לו דמות הגוף ואינו גוף, לא נערוך אליו קדושתו, קדמון לכל דבר אשר נברא, ראשון ואין ראשית לראשיתו, הינו אדון עולם וכל נוצר, יורק גדולתו ומלכותו, שפע נבואתו נתנו. אל אנשי סגולתו ותפארתו, לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד, נביא ומביט את תמונתו, תורת אמת נתן לימואל, על יד נביאו נאמן ביתו, לא יחליף האל ולא ימיר דתו, לעולמים לזולתו, צופה ויודע סתרנו, מביט לסוף דבר בקדמתו, גומל איש חסד כמפעלו, נותן לרשע רע כרישתו, ישלח לקץ ימין משיחנו, לבדות מחקקת ישועתו, מתים יחיילל ברוב חסדו, ברוך עדי עד השם תהילתו, מתים יחייל ברוב חסדו, ברוך עדי עד שם תהילתו.
I look forward to seeing you on Zoom in just a minute or two. The link can be found on the Beth Israel website, so we can wish each other a Shana Tova. Shana Tova Umtuka. I'll see you in a few minutes.
Shana Tova.
Zachrenu l'chaim, melech hafetz v'chaim, v'chazvenu v'sefer l'chaim, leman ko Elohim chaim. Zachrenu l'chaim, melech hafetz v'chaim, v'chazvenu v'sefer l'chaim, leman ko Elohim chaim.
Shahar avakasheka, tsuri umiskabi, erok levaneka shakri vegam arbi, lifne gedulateka, emod behel, ki enecha tireko makshevot libi, mazeh asher yuchal halev halashon לעשות ומכוח רוחי בתוך קרבי. הנה לך תיטב זמרת אנוש, על כן אודך בעתיה נשמת אלוהי.
Zur Yisroel, zur Yisroel, Kuma be'ezrat Yisroel, Kuma be'ezrat Yisroel, Go Aleinu, Adonai, Tzavaoth, Shemo Kidash, Yisroel, Baruch Ato Adonai, Ga'al Yisroel. Zachreinu l'chaim, melech hafetz v'chaim, v'chazveinu v'sefer l'chaim, leman ko Elohim chaim. Zachreinu l'chaim, melech hafetz v'chaim, v'chazveinu v'sefer l'chaim, leman ko Elohim chaim.
Shahar avakashecha, tsuri umiskabi, erok lefaneka shakri vegam arbi, lifne gedulateka, emod be'ebahel, ki enecha tireko makshevot libi, mazeh asher yuchal halev halashon לעשות ומכוח רוחי בתוך קרבי. הנה לך תיטב זמרת אנוש, על כן אודך בעתיה נשמת אלוהי.
Zur Yisroel, Zur Yisroel, Kuma be'ezrat Yisroel, Kuma be'ezrat Yisroel. Go Aleinu, Adonai, Tzavaoth, Shemo Kidash, Yisroel, Baruch Ato Adonai, Ga'al Yisroel. Zachreinu l'chaim, melech hafetz v'chaim, v'chazveinu v'sefer l'chaim, leman ko Elohim chaim. Zachrenu l'chaim, melech hafetz v'chaim, v'chasavenu v'sefer l'chaim, leman ko Elohim chayim.
Shahar avakashecha, tsuri umiskabi, erok levaneka shakri vegam arbi, lifne gedulateka, emod be'ebahel, ki enecha tireko makshevot libi, mazeh asher yuchal halev halashon לעשות ומכוח רוחי בתוך קרבי. הנה לך תיטב זמרת אנוש, על כן אודך בעתיה נשמת אלוהי.
Zur Yisroel, zur Yisroel, Kuma be'ezrat Yisroel, Kuma be'ezrat Yisroel. Go aleinu, Adonai, Tzavaot. Shemo Kidash Yisroel, Baruch Ato Adonai, Ga'al Yisroel. Zachrenu l'chaim.